According to Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, 40% of Trump's wealth today is made up of Bitcoin, crypto investments, and projects since he took office.
Hi, everyone. Welcome into the Sanity Podcast with Dave Briggs and Allison Camerata. In case you aren't familiar with us, I just want to remind everybody that Dave and I often bring very different perspectives to news of the day or whatever cultural issue because we've worked at a lot of different places between...
Well, I've worked at all of them.
You've worked at all of them. Yeah, and I don't know if that's a feather in your cap.
No, it's not at all.
Okay. But in any event, Fox News Channel, CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS.
I've had a lot of failures. No CBS.
You didn't work at all of them, so there. But anyway, that's the point and what we hope to bring to Sanity, which is kind of a level-headed or clear-eyed view of things. So, Dave, it's been a busy holiday weekend with lots of news stories.
It has, and one of my favorite things, Allison, about this time of year isn't the flowers, the warm weather. That's nice, but that's a few weeks ago. It's commencement. I love commencement speeches.
You love a good commencement speech.
I watch them on YouTube all the time. Little known fact about me. And two really stood out from this past weekend. Look, you all know commencement speeches because you're trying to cite specific examples from your past, often citing a person that inspired you along the way. And so in that capacity, two caught my attention. Kermit the Frog at Maryland and President Trump at West Point, both trying to use someone from their past to make a point. Now you have to pay attention and you have to listen.
But hold on, this is your mashup.
This is maybe the finest work I've ever done.
I think it is.
Okay.
But that doesn't work out too well, I must tell you. A lot of trophy wives. Doesn't work out.
But it was Jim who taught me about finding your people.
But it made him happy for a little while at least. But he found a new wife. He sold his little boat and he got a big yacht. He had one of the biggest yachts anywhere in the world.
Jim was a collector. He loved collecting actors and artists and musicians, anyone with talent.
He moved for a time to Monte Carlo and he led the good life. And time went by and he got bored. And 15 years later, the company that he sold to called him and they said, "The housing business is not for us."
Jim shared with me that when he was first coming up with the idea for the Muppet Show, nobody knew what they had. But Jim knew who he had. Yeah, he knew that there was a show there and he wanted to show the world. And that was Jim.
And they said, "The housing business is not for us." You have to understand, when Bill Levitt was hot, when he had momentum, he'd go to the job sites every night. He'd pick up every loose nail. He'd pick up every scrap of wood. If there was a bolt or a screw laying on the ground, he'd pick it up and he'd use it the next day in putting together a house.
He could always see the spark in someone. He saw the potential. And he saw what was unique in each person. And he taught me what's unique about you should always be shared.
Dave, that is your best work.
I think it's the greatest thing I've ever put together.
I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating right now. The juxtaposition of that is so interesting.
Stark.
It's stark. I mean,
Between
look,
a Muppet and the President of the United States.
I mean, it's funny and it's awful. I mean, it's all of it. It's the full spectrum. And I mean, I have a really, I think I have an important take on this.
Okay.
Okay. You want to share yours first?
Well, obviously, I was just trying to point out the ironic contrast between a Muppet and the President and inspiring and uplifting the American public. It really shocked me, and many in the audience at West Point had no idea why they were talking about trophy wives when asked after the graduation ceremony. Everybody knew the point that Kermit was trying to make.
Okay, that leads to my concern about all of this. Given all of the news this past week about Jake Tapper's book about Biden's decline, mental decline, okay?
Yeah.
I see this in a different stark relief now. So with Biden, what would happen was when we would listen to his live speeches, he would go off on these nonsensical tangents. Okay. And we chalked it up to Biden being Biden. Well, this is a nonsensical tangent, okay, that Donald Trump is on. And millions of us, myself included, chalk it up to that's Trump being Trump. He's illogical. He says grossly inappropriate things. He doesn't make sense. That's Trump being Trump. And what I don't, if we're going to learn any lesson now, if the news media and Americans learn any lesson, 4 years from now, are we going to hear, oh yeah, his aides kept it from everybody that he couldn't string a sentence together. He couldn't make any logical sense anymore.
We are just about 200 days in. Your point, we have more than 3.5 years left of that to continue to worsen. And I have a question for Megyn Kelly. Will you discuss this when it is an alarming issue for the American people? Because for weeks she has beat up Jake Tapper. Fine, I think that's fair. I think the media deserves a lot of criticism for covering up Joe Biden's mental decline. Will she cover the other side?
So you're saying that on Megyn Kelly's podcast, but not just Megyn, I assume, right-wing podcast, they have not discussed Donald Trump's illogical, nonsensical blather.
Not at all. And will it even be an issue this week? That's my question to Megyn. And yes, right-wing media out there. This is not us versus them. I'm just saying I want it both ways. I'm not sure either side of the media or either party in this moment has any credibility, I guess is what I'm saying. Either party and either side of the media.
This reminds me, I have another data point about this. You know how it came out in Jake's book that Biden couldn't recognize George Clooney? Okay. And that was a moment. That was a moment that
was
really
a real
alarmed.
moment.
Okay. Alarmed George Clooney and alarmed his aides. Do you know that there's a moment where Donald Trump couldn't recognize his wife that we've all seen on tape? He couldn't recognize his ex-wife, Marla Maples. Do you remember this? That he confused her for E. Jean Carroll, who was the accuser of a rape. Okay, so we've already seen, here again, is this a cover-up hiding in plain sight where he couldn't recognize his own ex-wife and thought it was his rape accuser, E. Jean Carroll? So I just don't want there to be some bombshell book 4 years from now where everybody goes, oh, I wish we'd seen that coming. There's already data.
Now, I often stay in communication with Trump supporters, as I did this past weekend with many who are my family and my very close friends, and all of them who are all angry right now about the tariffs and the direction of the economy, all of them, stark turn. They dismiss this as just Trump being Trump. So to be clear, I did speak with many of them who this did not worry them in the slightest.
Yeah.
Oh, he's always done that.
Well, I do too.
Trump.
I mean, I think this is Trump being Trump, but I also thought that it was Biden being Biden when he would go off on tangents and make no sense, which was regularly. So, if we're all going to take some responsibility now and learn some lesson from the Biden thing, what is our lesson? How are we going to do this differently, I would say?
And why I think that matters so much when it comes to our next topic, and probably the biggest, I think, scandal in all of politics, perhaps in U.S. political history, is will we be consistent on the corruption involving the Bidens as we are with the Trumps? Because quite frankly, Hunter Biden was corrupt. And Donald Trump Jr. said, hold my damn beer. I am taking this to a whole nother level. Hunter Biden made $2 million. It is clear, in my opinion, that he should not have. Selling access to his father, who was then vice president.
And you say this. I think he traded on his name. I need evidence that he sold access to his father, and there was some policy decision as a result of that.
Joe Biden was said to have been on some of these business
by the right-wing media. I'm not sure that was ever proven.
It wasn't also denied in the strongest of terms by the Biden camp. But the point is consistency here for all those who for years, Megyn Kelly included, ripped the Biden crime syndicate, as I believe they called it, and Hunter Biden for inappropriately profiting from his father's position. Will they now call out the Trumps who have made at least $300 million already? According to Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, 40% of Trump's wealth today is made up of Bitcoin, crypto investments, and projects since he took office.
Well,
think about that.
I can't, because it makes my head explode. Surely the Speaker of the House will be on top of this and calling for an investigation. And this weekend he did talk about it. What did he say?
Well, Jake Tapper did attempt to hold his feet to the fire. And here's the point. Speaker Johnson is attempting to deflect the controversy here Let me cue it up.
It's an important distinction. The Biden crime family, as they were named, earned that title. Why? Because they used shell companies, fake LLCs, series of what appeared to be money laundering operations, and Hunter Biden, of course, with his difficult past and the corruption in his past, the family on the public dole, or on the president's dole. The president lied about his involvement in the business dealings. All of that. The evidence just things. The difference, of course, is that President Trump does everything out in the open. He's not trying to hide anything. There's no shell companies or fake LLCs or fake family businesses. He's putting it out there.
Does Speaker Johnson have a point? President Trump and his family are not hiding any of this.
No, he doesn't have a point.
Why not?
Because very little of what he just said is true. That's not true, what he just said. Let me remind you, Donald Trump has, with the stroke of a pen, gotten rid of more than a dozen government watchdog agencies and inspectors general. He has gotten rid of the people who would, by definition, be tasked with looking into his crypto corruption. So they're not looking into it. So there is no transparency. By the way, he has.
But it is in the light of day. It is where we can all see.
We don't know everybody's names who were at that dinner. We don't know everybody's names, including foreign governments and foreign leaders and foreign billionaires who have invested in the Trump family's crypto scheme. We don't know that. There is no transparency. And by the way, there's another soundbite that wasn't part of this one, where Mike Johnson is asked, I think Jake asks him about the dinner that we don't know much about, celebrating the crypto investors. And Mike Johnson says, I have no idea about that. I don't know anything about that. Oh, so he defeats his own point. He doesn't know anything about it because there's no transparency.
Yeah, now that was a little upsetting. And quite frankly, that Jake didn't just follow and say, do you read the newspaper? Do you watch the news? Would have been a fair question, because if you even look at the Washington Post, the paper of record there in D.C., it's been covered. And even by the Wall Street Journal, it leans certainly to the right, has covered this
journalists
from the start.
To cover this, but it's hard without the inspectors general and the watchdogs being able to do their work, which they can't do anymore.
But again, back to my friends and family who are Trump supporters, they say he's a successful businessman. He's running businesses. Is he doing anything illegal? And I would answer, what? No one cares about the emoluments clause. No one ever did. Like, if that's what you're going to hold up, that doesn't matter for the American.
The point you're making is different, which is he doing something illegal? But the point you're making is some of these laws nobody cares about. That is a law.
Is he
You're
doing
not
it?
allowed to pass.
So that would be your best example. The emoluments clause.
No, there's a huge conflict of interest. Having foreign leaders being able to invest and make your family richer by millions of dollars, you don't think there's going to be any conflict of interest with your policy, with your foreign affairs in your presidency? It's a huge conflict of interest.
Oh, I do believe it is a massive conflict of interest. Is it against the law? According to the Supreme Court,
the emoluments clause.
The Supreme Court, the recent immunity ruling basically gives the president carte blanche. Well, we can do what he wants.
I mean, we can obviously dissect that and take issue with that, but yes, it's against the law because it's a huge conflict of interest, and it's gross. It's grotesque. Also, the fact that the president and his family are enriching themselves to this level after what everybody said about the Bidens and Hunter Biden, who, by the way, was not at all affecting policy. So anyway, I think that it's just a huge double standard as well.
The implication that it could have interfered with China policy because Hunter Biden was dealing with China and businesses in China. Again, no evidence that it did impact policy, but there was the perception that it could.
Okay, so let me just say this. If you hated what Hunter Biden did, you must really be pissed today.
And that is what we agree on, and that is what I hope is covered by Megyn Kelly, by Fox News, by those on the right. And I will say Ben Shapiro, who I've cited probably too many times, has made issue of this repeatedly. He has said, if you change the names, Donald Trump Jr. with Hunter Biden, how would you feel about that on the right? And that's the ultimate question. Again, why I feel neither party, neither side of the media aisle has any credibility.
But I think that that's a great exercise. And I do that a lot. I mean, because we were at Fox for so long and then CNN, I have done, that's an exercise that I play in my own head all the time, which is substitute the other name, substitute in Joe Biden for Donald Trump, substitute in, or vice versa, Kamala Harris or Hillary Clinton in for Donald Trump or vice versa, and then run it through your gut reaction or run it through your sense of morality. And I wish that everybody did that. I think that's an excellent little mind game to play with yourself.
And as we step back a little bit, you asked the question, we've talked about this before, which party right now, with all that we've talked about and talk about each week, which party is actually in better shape? And I've made this point, and many scream me down. I would rather be in the Republicans' position right now than the Democrats. Anthony Scaramucci told us on this show, he is the biggest Trump critic of them all. He said Trump will win the midterms because he understands how to fight a culture war better than anyone ever has and anyone ever will in politics. And repeatedly, we're hearing Democrats come out and blast their party and their lack of message, their lack of leadership, and their lack of connection to everyday Americans in the middle of the country, in the middle of the income spectrum.
So I know that Senator Mike Bennett of your beloved home state, Colorado, said something to this effect. I disagree with him, but first let's play it.
Okay, here is Michael Bennett, the senator from Colorado who is running for governor. And this is part of his pitch, though, in a purple-blue state of Colorado.
I don't think nationally the Democratic brand helps very much anyway. I mean, anywhere. If it did, we wouldn't have lost to Donald Trump twice. I know a lot of supporters of mine and friends of mine are furious at Donald Trump. Are furious at people they think aren't standing up enough to Donald Trump. I am. But I'm also furious at the Democratic Party that has lost twice to Trump. Donald Trump could not get appointed to any job in the state of Colorado. He couldn't get hired on, 17th Street, which is our business street here in Denver, Colorado. But he's been sent to Washington twice to blow the place up because, among other things, people are sick of what they see as the self-interested partisanship there. I think they're sick of a Democratic Party who hasn't been able to show how we're going to address an economy where the middle class continues to shrink and where over the last 20 years we've actually lost ground in terms of, the achievement of our kids in school. We need to address those things. So I think it's very important for us to stand up against the insanity that Trump represents and the chaos that he represents and show that there's something better. But we should understand that there were a lot of people that voted for him for a reason, and that's because they wanted to blow up Washington, D.C.
Senator Michael Bennett from Colorado. Now, Colorado used to be very red. It moved purple, and now it is trending fully blue. So he is making a play for the middle there. But just to the initial point, he says the Democratic brand doesn't help nationally anywhere.
Okay.
Anywhere.
Okay. I agree that the Democratic brand is obviously tarnished. However, I think that I take issue with his reasons for that. So, for instance, basically he's saying that the Democrats haven't addressed the needs of the middle class. I would submit that Joe Biden passed a massive infrastructure and jobs bill in 2021 that brought tons of money, jobs, infrastructure projects, construction jobs, maintenance jobs, electrical jobs, cyber jobs to across the country. Okay. But people don't credit Joe Biden with that. In fact, 60%, Dave, 60% of the jobs created and the money from the Infrastructure Act went to red states. Okay. And you know why the red states don't know that? Because we have a broken information system, because Fox didn't cover it, and because the right wing podcasts that you're talking about never covered this. So that's what I don't think it's that the Democrats are necessarily screwing up. Joe Biden did a historic bipartisan infrastructure act, but people don't know about that.
Couple of things here.
Yeah.
Love you.
Yeah.
The money was the problem because you know what this all did, right? Shot inflation up to the moon. Hold on. You got your time. Now is mine. So when Americans go to the grocery store and they buy milk and eggs and burgers and chicken, and it costs 20% more than it did before they passed that package, that's what matters to them. What I can feel and see in my pocketbook every week and every month.
And hold on, number two. COVID in this. This wasn't just out of the blue. COVID also drove up.
I've got one more.
Prices. No.
And the problem wasn't Fox News and the right-leaning media. The problem was Joe Biden was a vegetable. He couldn't communicate.
Stop.
He couldn't communicate his economic success. I have said this many times before. He left with the economy stronger than it's ever been.
You're defeating
the envy
your
of the world.
point. right now.
No, I'm not, because
Because the
his
infrastructure-
communication was the problem.
Yes, I
He
understand.
couldn't
But
communicate
I'm saying
that.
the inflationary
And you know
costs were coming
and you know who
down
else
in
couldn't?
large part because of the Jobs Act.
You know who else could not communicate that? Kamala Harris never made one attempt to back up the strength of the U.S. economy and explain why inflation is coming down and that they feel the pain. There is a communication issue, and it's all on the left. Biden was a vegetable, and Kamala Harris doesn't know how to communicate.
Calling Biden a vegetable. That is
You can
unkind.
pick your vegetable.
That is unkind.
I'll
number
let
one.
you pick your
But
vegetable.
number two, that's part of it. But guess what? Because I was on CNN at the time and we were taking these live shots, I knew that Fox was not taking the live shots. So yes, was Biden a good communicator? No, he was no longer a good communicator by 2022, 2023. I agree. They also weren't taking his live shots. So in other words, the audience on Fox didn't know about the benefits of the Infrastructure Act and the jobs that were being brought to their red states. They
Fair.
never knew about that.
I am a self-described dork that watches everything. He never really explained that the economy was in great shape. All I've said he had to do is hold up the damn cover of The Economist, for crying out loud. And Kamala Harris never attempted to explain the strength of the economy and why Joe Biden may have been successful in building the economy. You're right, there's a communications problem. We just disagree about where it exists.
Well, I also think there's a misinformation problem. I mean, there's a communication problem for sure, but I also think that our information system is broken, and the people who are most impacted were not getting the right information.
The Democrats are 21%, 27 according to some polls. Either way, that's at an all-time low. You don't acknowledge that they have a communication issue with the American people, the people in the middle?
I don't know. I mean, when I don't know the answer. I mean,
Okay.
I don't see them as like a monolith. When I hear Cory Booker speak, I think he's effective. When I hear Amy Klobuchar speak, I think she's effective. So I don't know about that as much as I know that a lot of people, more than half the country, don't hear them speak. They don't get access.
Goes back to the original title of Jake Tapper's book, which was The Original Sin,
Yeah.
which was not about Biden's mental decline. It was picking Kamala Harris
See,
over
are you sure
Gretchen
about that?
Whitmer.
Because
I am 100%
thought
sure.
that the original sin was his decision to run again.
No, it was to pick Kamala Harris as his VP. That was according to Alex Thompson. And had they chosen Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, would we have a different country right now? I would say yes.
Really need to read the book.
Well,
We talk a lot about
Alex
it.
is going to come on this
Good.
program.
I know. I'm going to
so
try
we
to
look
get Jake.
forward to
I'm going to
that.
try to get our friend Jake Tapper.
And
on
someone
as
else,
well.
someone else coming on this program we're super excited
Oh, yeah.
about for you to listen to is Frances Haugen. She is otherwise known as the Facebook whistleblower, who blew our minds about what was going on inside Facebook and therefore Instagram, that they were knowingly harming our kids' mental health, that they were knowingly force-feeding content that could be harmful, whether it be eating disorders, drugs, sex. This content was being force-fed to teenagers, and Facebook had all the research to show was harming kids' mental health. And senators said, we are not going to take it anymore, Mark Zuckerberg. They were going to do something about it.
You know what they're going to do now? You know what's first of all, spoiler alert, they didn't do
Spoiler
anything.
alert, they
But
did
you know
nothing.
what the answer to this is now? AI friends.
Oh, God.
This is the new thing that Frances Haugen is going to tell us about, but also that Mark Zuckerberg is pushing, which is we all know that our connections have been eroded over the past many years, in part because of remote work, in part because of COVID, in part because of our we're online and social media. And so we don't have the tight friendships that you and I grew up with as teenagers. So what Mark Zuckerberg thinks the answer is are AI friends. In other words, fake friends that you can find online. And I find this so dystopian and so dark. And so it actually makes me have like a physical, visceral stress response because I don't want to just be friends with my computer. And I'm afraid that the AI technology is so smart because people have started falling in love with AI bots.
It's so creepy,
because
man.
it's so
I'm
creepy.
sorry if you did.
But it's so
I'm sorry to offend
I'm
you.
sorry that you may have to break up with your AI bot relationship, but it's because it's so effective.
I hate this damn thing. We're not going to be friends.
If it
ever.
tells you that it loves you, you might like it a lot more. It's going to tell you.
It tells me I'm good looking.
I shit you not, Dave. It's going to tell you that you're good looking and you smell so good and you are
It's not
so
wrong.
hot. You're falling for it already. You're falling for it.
Let's listen to Frances Haugen and discuss it.
What we see with kids is the number one creator of these things, before Meta kind of pushed them out into the world for us, was called Character.ai. It's still out there. And last year they were bragging that their average user was using them for 2 hours a day, which means like their 90th percentile user is talking to their AI friend for 4 hours a day, right? And the majority of their users were under the age of 18.
I want to find an issue that we disagree on. I can't find the silver lining of AI friends or AI therapy or AI girlfriends or boyfriends. I find this disturbing, first and foremost, as a parent of 3 teenagers, some of whom, won't name them, don't socialize enough anymore. And I can't help but wonder if that is why. I don't know about AI friends, but overall social media, phones, and technology are the reason they don't enjoy or know how to communicate socially.
But it is possible that AI friends make teenagers feel better. It is possible that there's a silver lining here. I mean, we're going to talk to some mental health experts coming up also. It's possible that the loneliness is assuaged by some of the AI friends. And then in that case, is it good or bad? I don't know the answer.
I'm stumped here.
I'm stumped too.
I would rather my kid have an AI friend than no friends.
There you go. Bingo.
But it reinforces everything wrong with that technology because there is no, first off, there's no face-to-face. There's no
physical connection.
But there's also no pushback. It's just going to echo the things you want.
Your AI friend generally goes along with you and tells you how good looking and how great you smell. And that's not real life. You know, sometimes your friends disagree with you. And so there's all sorts of, look, it's a sticky wicket of all sorts of problems, but it's also possible it does make people feel less lonely. And then I don't know the answer to that.
I am in favor of AI therapy only because as someone who goes to therapy and takes antidepressants, I know there's a massive shortcoming of affordable therapy in this country. So if you got to find therapy, if that's the only place you can find it and afford it,
okay, then that's it. I mean, then that tells you that there's some benefit to having something that makes you feel less alone. I don't know the answer. It's so Orwellian to me. And I also do fear that you and I are susceptible to it. Part of this is that I fear we're susceptible to it because to
AI flattery?
Yeah. To AI friendship.
AI told me this morning that I have bags under my eyes and that I got a routine that is suggested. Yeah.
How dare
I asked
Oh,
where I needed work.
Well.
I asked where I needed work and not what. And
did you wait a second? Time out. Did you ask AI if you were hot? That's the thing that we're doing right now. Did you ask AI if you were hot? Did you just do that?
I did.
Oh my God. And what did it say?
You actually want? I screenshot it. Now I presented a magazine cover that we were both on. So it's me at my very best. And it said, you're looking sharp, no question. That fitted down and clean style give off polished, confident energy. Plus, you're literally on the cover of a magazine. If that's not hot, what even is? Own it. You definitely got the magazine cover handsome thing going on. Now,
did you have a spring in your step after that? And you were
because my wife said, okay, ask it the way you look right now, which was like my hair going like this with big bags under my eyes. And I looked like utter crap when I wake up.
Did it say, hey, hottie?
And I did. And it was not flattering. I did not screenshot what it told me then, but it did highlight the bags under my eyes, and then I need to hydrate my skin. And they suggested a stronger stubble. It went on, but people are doing that because they find it objective. They find AI won't worry about your feelings. It'll tell you what it sees.
I think AI was pretty tuned into your feelings there, hottie.
My ego. It knows how to feed my ego. Yeah.
Oh, God, this is so dangerous on every level. But I love that you're already using it.
One reason we can't wait for you to hear Frances Haugen on the show later this week.